what, Joe? It couldn't be better. In a minute or two. Is that anything you've had?
Well, this even went all the way up the flagpole to Jim Zirkle, I think. We've had an abandoned bicycle in our neighborhood for 4 weeks.
Oh, that one that was on Facebook? The blue one?
Well, it's on Old Jacksonville Road.
Oh, no, this one's on Walnut.
Our SP, we've been monitoring it for a month. It hasn't.
We control how much we talk.
But our SP going to monitor it for another month.
Never do the undershirt. What?
Exactly.
Rig.
Well,
I got you.
because maybe someone's put it there and they're leaving it there so they can go work somewhere and then come back. But it just made a
Okay, so you know what?
reason for
Was that Chuck?
go out the neighborhood. This is on the city property. City has a
It was not. I'm like, Dad. Okay, thank you. No, I called them and they said they were identical.
went up from the MPO to the sergeant to the deputy chief of operations.
They're going to give it, but they continue.
Walk outside and go in. Temperature dropped about 20 degrees.
Chair will call the April 3rd, 2018 meeting of the City Council to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Clerk, if you please call the roll.
Will do. Alderman Redpath. Here. Alderman Senor.
Present.
Alderman Turner.
Here.
Alderman Fulgenzi.
Here.
Alderman Proctor. Here. Alderman DeCenso.
Present.
Alderman McMiniman.
Here.
Alderman Tylen. Alderman Donnellan.
Here.
Alderman Hanauer.
Here.
Mayor Langfelder.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, a quorum is present.
Thank you. We do have a presentation. Director Mark Mahoney coordinated with Michael Wilson and Randy Lassner of IPS. If you'd like to come forward, they're going to give us a presentation with regards to parking meter solutions for downtown. If you want to introduce yourself and company, that'd be great.
Thank you very much. Michael Wilson. I am the Regional Director of Sales for IPS based out of St. Louis. Our headquarters as a company is out of San Diego. Certainly with the weather we see today, I wish I was out in San Diego. So this is Randy. I'll let Randy introduce himself.
Hello, my name is Randy Lassner, and I work for IPS as well. I handle the enforcement solution for IPS, so I handle pretty much half of the country currently. And I'm excited to be able to give you a short presentation on what we have to offer.
Yes, thank you. So whenever I come and present and introduce IPS for the first time, I always like to address one thing, and I think everybody agrees with me. Technology has changed the world that we live in. IPS recognized that nearly a decade ago and launched its smart meter technology for paid parking in cities. In this presentation, I certainly want to give everybody an overview of our technology. We have been working with the city quite extensively over the last probably 6 months. And I think you're going to like what you hear based on what IPS has developed. The first slide, if you guys can glance behind you, I think this is important because IPS realized that long ago there was an intersection between technology, the financial well-being of cities and municipalities that we work with, as well as the customer experience. And that customer experience holds such weight because when people come into a jurisdiction, whether it be a municipality or a region in a city, they may not necessarily recognize what was special about that environment, but we like them to walk out going, I did have a very satisfactory experience or a pleasant experience, and we like to attune paid parking and helping that attitude for visitors. This is a little summary slide of IPS and the performance and kind of legacy that we've built over the last 10 years. If you look at the right side, it gives some testimonials or examples of customers that use us today. This is a very small sample. Today we have nearly 290 cities, municipalities that rely on us, both big and small. San Francisco, for example, has 37,000 of our meters deployed. I have other cities that have 100, 200, so we do big and small. From a device perspective, that number 250,000 you see is actually quite small. We have nearly 290,000 that are deployed. As a business headquartered in San Diego, we have 160 plus individuals, nearly 80 engineers that are working full-time to better the products that we offer and develop new ones. But I think one of the big things that I like to point out, not only the patents that we have, but more importantly, the payback for cities. And if you look at those two circles in the middle of that slide, it defines IPS in this. From a revenue gain perspective, we average nearly 30% increases when we go into new environments with our technologies. As we'll get into some of the follow-up slides, you'll see how that happens and why it occurs. But just remember that 30% gain. The second thing is, from a 99% uptime perspective, that's our devices. So if we talk about single-space meters, as we're looking at here in Springfield, you want those meters to always be operational, not have issues or not be down with problems. You can look at any of our client base that we have into our back-end system, and you'll see some of them operating at 99%, 99%, or 99.5% and upwards. From a performance standpoint. So that carries a lot of weight, especially as we're talking about revenue and increases for the city. This is kind of a summary slide, and I'll point it out. We're going to walk through individual slides around each of these, but this is wonderful because it shows our depth of knowledge when it does come to paid parking, because it's not just meters. We talk about things like sensors that I'll introduce here momentarily. Randy's going to talk about enforcement. We have a permit management application that coincides with that. We have a mobile application that I tell people is second to none, and I'll give you a little introduction here momentarily on that. And then some additional payment options that we've developed that are kind of special to the industry, as you see, or hopefully you can see that when we talk about in-vehicle payment options and such. So this is a good slide because it really highlights the innovative attitude that IPS has. So we develop our technologies. It's just not a technology that's 10 years old. We're always improving that. We're always developing new features and functionalities that are going to continue to bring additional benefits to cities that we work with. This slide is an example of what we call our M5s. They're our next generation technology for parking meters. Of course, as many of you see right in the very front of that, we offer coins. We also offer credit card integration. It does have solar power, so we're not charging these things relying on batteries. Some of the nice features and patents that we have associated with this. These are what's deployed in, like I said, nearly 300 cities across the country today. One nice claim to fame is that we control nearly between 85 and 90% of the market for single-space meters, going back to both the patents as well as the added functionality that we offer that others can't compete with. And this is part of the solution that we proposed for Springfield. This next slide is a little addition that's offered on top of the single-space meters. If you kind of see on the sides, they look like ears. We call those single-space sensors. And what they do is a couple things, and these are great benefits for the city, is they identify occupancy in spaces. But what they also do, and this goes back to the payback, is it tells you when there's cars both in and not in parking spaces, so occupied and non-occupied. That comes twofold as we get into to the mobile application. I'll talk about that momentarily. But from a payback perspective, think of it this way. If you pull into a meter and you put, let's say it's $4 in that meter, right? I could sit in that meter for X amount of time, but whatever time allotment is left on that meter and I pull out of that meter, instead of leaving that time on the meter, it resets back to zero. So that comes back to being pure profit for the city and additional revenue that's not accounted for. Great feature, and one of the most popular things about that. For the installs that I've been doing recently, every single one of them has included the sensors. And again, we'll talk more about the additional power that it has in that. Randy's going to introduce real quick the enforcement side, and then I'll take over again and talk about some other things.
Well, across our 290 clients we have across the U.S., they've all been asking for a single source solution, meaning one vendor that can handle all their parking needs. So instead of IPS going out and purchasing another enforcement application from another company, we decided to build ours from the ground up. It's fully web-based system. It's all in real time. So when the right to parking violation, it gets sent to the back end. The customers can pay online immediately. And it's all seamlessly integrated into our meter application. So you would have basically one vendor handling all your parking needs, one person to go to for help if there's any issues. You're not building a bunch of bridges with other companies and finger pointing saying that wasn't my system, that was theirs. It's an end-to-end, so everything from the handheld that you see here that the parking enforcers would be using to write parking violations to a third-party collection company that could collect on old tickets, as well as we could pull RO information for all 50 states. So if that person doesn't pay in a certain amount of time based on the city's rules, we could send out delinquent notices. Or, you could also keep that functionality within the city as well. So depending on the kind of lifting you want to do. To integrate into that as well is we have a full permitting solution as well if the city decides to go down that road. So again, between the mobile application, the meters, the parking enforcement, the collections, we are really the only company out there that could sole source, and you could have one person to point the finger at on the application that you choose.
Thanks, Randy. Okay. So again, from a payment option, we have an in-vehicle payment system we developed in cooperation with Visa and Honda that lets you pay from your dashboard. Although it's only initially rolled out here in 2018 with Honda, there's many of the other big five manufacturers are on board with developing this technology. It's great when we talk about cities that are in the upper half of the United States that have to deal with weather factors, i.e., cold rain, ice, snow, just conditions that are unfavorable. Many just like to have the convenience of doing that in their car, so we did develop that. This next item is our Park Smarter application. It's a mobile application, so I suspect that everybody in this room is familiar with what's out there from a technology standpoint, paying with your phone. Well, IPS developed this technology as a complement to what we do in the space of paid parking. It's not meant or intended to be a revenue source, which is great when we do present it to cities. I have these this slide with three views that I created, and if you guys can take a peek, I'm going to talk about just these three very quickly. The one on the left side, that's called Park Finder. What this does, it's an application that identifies available spots in the city of Springfield when people enter the city. Some of our competitors provide solutions that tell you where expired meters are, but what IPS does is we integrate our sensors that I introduced earlier with this application, and it does identify what spots, in fact, do not have automobiles in there. So it's a real nice feature and complement to what this mobile application is intended to do. The middle view is the actual spot where you make that transaction. So you enter your information, whose car it is, what credit card I'm using, et cetera, and then all you do is slide that bar across. It's very, very easy, intuitive, and quick to use. At the bottom, you'll see the kind of views that you have there at the bottom of each of those windows. These are just navigational sites that you can get to very quickly to set up accounts or do statuses, receipts, et cetera. The one on the right is a great feature that was developed in cooperation with Visa and individual businesses in city jurisdictions. And what it's intended to do is provide a couponing option. So if somebody were to walk up to or use a meter and they get out of their car, say I'm standing in front of Joe's Pizza, it can send a notification to my phone that come into Joe's Pizza, buy a large pepperoni and you'll save $1. Great thing about this is it's not a transaction from the business to the end user. It's a transaction between that business, the end user and Visa. So at the end of the month, they'll get their statement, and they're going to have a cost savings associated with local businesses where they took advantage of those coupon options. So it's great for all of us that are involved in this because we don't necessarily have to support it. This is kind of a wrapper slide that I use because it really tells the story of IPS. And what that means is, yes, we're all familiar with paying with coins today, right? Somebody walks up to me, or they reach in their pocket, they pull out 7 cents. That's how much they have available today to spend at the meter. Yes, it creates issues here in Springfield when people are talking about, wow, do I leave? Do I take the chance of getting a ticket, et cetera? We still recognize that there's people that prefer to pay with coins, so we still offer it. But as you move down this slide from top to bottom, and you'll see credit cards, right? One thing that we like to point out when it comes to credit cards is two things. First is we don't charge a fee to the end user for using our credit card at the meter, okay? It's great when it comes to that person that says, hey, I'm going to pull out my Visa or my MasterCard or my American Express. I don't want to see a subsequent charge on my credit card at the end of the month, so you won't see that. Secondly is the amount of revenue that's charged on a credit card versus use of coins. So in all of our client base, when you go back in, the average transaction cost from a credit card use is $1.76. The average transaction on a cash transaction is nearly a third of that. So there's a lot more money that's coming back to the city by us introducing the use of a credit card. The third option you see there is the cell phone option. I'm like anybody else. I use my cell phone. It's a great opportunity, great advantage for me to have that at my fingertips, but all of us need to recognize the use of a credit card or misuse of a mobile phone application is still not widely accepted. 5% of our community elects to pay with their mobile phone application. So if you think about 5 out of 100, that's who we're satisfying by just going with a sole mobile application. Again, keep in mind, these are all designed to be payment options for people. If you don't have coin, if you don't have a credit card, if you don't have a mobile phone payment or option, we're going to offer you, what we can to make that easier on the end user. Hence the fourth option, the smart card, right? So we do offer that. I think you guys have a key option today, but this takes the place of that. There's some cities that like it, some that don't, but again, IPS realizes that we need to be able to satisfy those that have that preference. As you move over to the right side, you'll see the words NFC. So most of us know NFC transactions today. These are touchless transactions. You can use that at our meters as well. So I can slide my phone across it. It'll recognize that transaction and execute that credit card fee, or that credit card transaction itself. This is just a slide I like to throw up. There's only a few more, so I appreciate you guys giving me a chance here. This is something I like to introduce because I do get a lot of questions about, hey, how do I track my transactions today, right? Today, you can't do that. Me as a salesperson, I go into cities. If I use a meter, usually my company will say, well, what'd you spend or how'd you spend it? This is just an option for people being able to track what they spent on those meters. It's free service. You can log into it on any browser, myparkingreceipts.com. So just obviously another feature that just adds some satisfaction to that end user. This is a data management system. I just bring this up because this is the whole tie between the communication. As Randy talked about, when we have an integrated sole source solution, you want to be able to manage one application across one backbone. That's what this does. If you're doing our mobile payment, if you're doing our single space meters, if any of the applications, you have this that are supporting that. Every client has views, multiple views. They can set authorities around what people see and so forth, but you have that ability to go and identify and find out information in this management system. Last slide, finally, recognize that IPS takes great care and concern in customer service for end users. We realize that those end users don't live and breathe this every day like we do. So what IPS does is when customers come on board, we assign a dedicated customer service manager to be there at whoever's managing the system's fingertips for open Q&A, how-to questions, problems that arise as technology when they occur. It's up to us to fix those problems as quick as we can. So again, you can maintain that 99+% availability. So no, in this case, like I said, Springfield will get assigned its own customer service manager. That's it. Appreciate it. Thank you for the time today. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions? Alderman Hanauer.
First of all, thanks for coming. I think I've used your meters. You have Columbia, Missouri?
Columbia's not ours.
They got a good system, too, because they nailed me. they nailed me, I will tell you that, like 2 minutes after I was expired. So, so what's the cost? I mean, that's the bottom line here. I understand the need for technology, but being in a tough budget situation, what's the overall cost and what's, that's my biggest thing.
Well, Director Mahoney can come up, and then if you'd talk about what other cities have done to cover the costs.
Sure. So what we always like to point out is, yes, there's a cost involved in this, and we recognize that from an expense standpoint, we offer people to invest a lot, but the key thing is to understand the payback. And we talk about the payback being a very, very large payback to cities, as evidenced in our client base. And in fact, if you go on our website, you can see live testimonials from not just one, but many of our customer base who've made that investment and seen that payback, tenfold in a lot of areas, not only financially, but from a visitor or a user's perspective, satisfaction perspective, but all these things that coincide. It's key that everybody recognizes that that financial return is really the justification between the investment. And Mark can go over, we did put it out for an RFP, and if you want to go over that.
Yeah, and this is, I probably should have just started off with this, but we did several months ago, or even longer now, I think most people remember, it was DSI. I know a couple of the aldermen were really interested in the different solutions that are out there for parking. And a lot of it had to do with the Finder apps, the Pay apps, as well as on our enforcement side, what we call our handheld devices, what the meter people use out there day to day. Those were in need of replacement, and we actually budgeted for replacement of those. So really, it all kind of came together. We did an RFP, I think it was back out in late summer, early fall, and then we put together an RFP committee that was involved. Treasurer Busher was in it, John West with ISD, as well as our parking people, somebody from Sandy Robinson with purchasing. So it was an extensive process over the last several months to go through this and end up with this IPS as the solution. And what we did as part of that, we've done negotiation through the RFP process and come up with a rough cost of really what it would cost over a 3-year period to put these in place. And actually part of that discussion was, do we really need to replace, we have about 1,500 meters, a little bit less than that for the whole downtown area. Do we really need to replace all those meters? Because that's the largest cost of all this. All those other things are much less than that. And then we came up with 800 meters that are the core downtown that would provide customer solutions to a lot of the problems, a lot of the complaints we have about finding parking, address a lot of the issues, the pay apps, all that stuff. So the idea was to replace those 800 meters. That brought the cost back even more. And we're looking at, we still haven't finalized because we wanted to bring this presentation to you guys and talk about it a little bit, but it's roughly over a 3-year period, I think a total range of about $700,000 for the complete solution. But again, we haven't finalized, everything. We could pare that back. We could discuss some of those options, but that's kind of what we're looking at. And what we started doing, and we'll put something together and get it to the council. We talked to DSI a little bit about this, and we gave a presentation at DSI, I think it was last week. A couple of the downtown aldermen, we could talk to them a little bit about it as well, is we can look at some other, some options as far as adjusting the rates. Adjusting the rates on those meters that we're going to replace in the core, because we're looking at this sort of as a convenience fee, those kind of things. So only adjusting those, how could we put together a pay package over 3 years to pay this off? The parking fund as is could not support these upgrades. There's just not enough funds in it to do that. But with some adjustment of those 800 meters, we could do it over a 3-year period and pay for it all. So
Mark, does this include, do the company get so much per ticket that's written to, or is that, I mean,
I'll let these guys speak to that,
works?
But that's all part of the negotiation we went back and forth on, and they can break all that up for you.
Yes, on the enforcement side, it's a per ticket charge.
What, approximately how much?
It's roughly on average about probably $1.50 per ticket.
$1.50. And how many tickets do we usually have a year approximately? Does anybody know?
It's like 20. I think the RFP was 28.
You know. They were coming. I didn't bring anything up.
Yeah, this is more.
We'll get you all that, but yeah, I mean, that's another option. We talked about that as well. You could adjust the tickets. The ticket rates were adjusted probably, it's been several years ago now. Yeah. The meter rates were last adjusted, we believe, sometime in the early 90s or maybe late 80s. We're not sure of that. We have to double check it. Yeah. Sam started in what, 92?
92.
The rates
They've been the same since 92, so it's time.
But yeah, that's we'll get you all that data. We also have data comparison to other cities, the Decatur's, the Peoria's, those areas where they have meters and what their rates are as well. So.
All right, thank you.
From a payback perspective, there is one statistic I like to share. So it goes back to the sensors that we talk about. The average payback on sensors per pole per day is between $3 and $4. We stand behind that because of all of our current customers that are using that. But if you take that back to the cost of the meter, if you're thinking that, okay, in 100 days I can pay for the sensor itself, which is nearly a third of the cost of what each of these meters is today, you're roughly saying that I'm going to pay for this roughly within about 300 days. After that is basically pure profit on top of the benefits or increases that we've talked about thus far. Yes, sir.
Alderman Donlin.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess my question is more for the director, Mark, if you don't mind coming up. What would be helpful to have is a summary of, how many tickets have been written over, pick 5 years, 10 years, whatever we have readily available, how much revenue that's generated, both from the meters, the people plugging the meters, as well as the fines. That would be helpful to have that information. And then a summary that shows how much this is going to cost, not only to implement, but how much it's going to cost on an ongoing basis based upon the historical data. And because I'm hearing a lot of things, first time I've heard about it, and I think it would be helpful to have that so that we understand what is being asked. I hear you saying that you may be coming and asking the council to increase rates, and that's obviously something that we hadn't heard before. So.
And we could get you all that data. What the projections are for the increases, like some of these solutions we talked about are going to see a little bit of bump just because of when the cars move out, the extra dollars, those kind of things. So we'll put all that together and get it with you, and also with the comparison rates and that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, today was more for information from the parking solutions because they did give a presentation to DSI, some of the aldermen, so we wanted all the aldermen to hear it. But as far as doing analysis with our peer cities, we'll do that comparison. The other option is they do have a loan program through the, if we decide to go that route, through the company. So there's various options. So that's something that we wanted to get in front of you just as an FYI more than anything. But as far as what to do or how to pay for it, that'll come later. This is more informational. But Alderman Proctor?
Mayor, if I could just ask one
Sure.
more quick question of the two gentlemen that are here. Could you provide us, or maybe you could just say it off the top of your head, what other cities around us, whether it's Peoria, Bloomington, are there other cities in Illinois that you presently work with?
We have a strong base in Ohio. We have Cincinnati, Columbus, Dayton, working with Athens, Ohio right now, Easton Town Center's in Ohio. In Illinois, we currently...
I don't know if I have anybody in Illinois. I know we're doing a free project up in South Wisconsin.
And I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, it's fine.
What would be helpful to us is if you could give us some cities you presently work with, even if some are sort of comparable by size.
St. Louis has 1,700 OR meters.
Okay.
Got a great relationship with individuals that work in that space. And again, any of the customers that you guys want to talk to, we're happy to put you in front of them.
Thank you.
Even without us. So I think just testimonials that you'll see are wonderful.
You can just get that stuff to the director.
Yes.
And he'll give it to us.
Yes, sir.
Alderman Proctor and then Alderman Senor.
Okay, cool. Thank you much for coming tonight. I had a quick question about the natural revenue growth that you mentioned in your chart. You said that it was about average of 30% natural revenue growth. Are there cities that you work with that see higher than that?
Yes, certainly.
Can you provide that to us to kind of give us comparable, compare one of your customers now that's kind of the same size as us, the same type of meters that we're looking at, and see what, kind of give us a breakdown of who's seeing maybe higher than 30%?
Sure.
Okay, thanks. And then I guess it's more question for Mark and Sam, did we kind of budget that in to see what additional revenue could be provided to possibly pay for this rather than having increased rates or fines?
Calculated as a can.
So that's forthcoming. So, okay, cool. And then the last thing, the Park Smarter app, I think you have, would that work independently outside of swapping out the meter heads? Because that's probably the biggest cost component is swapping out the meter heads that we have. Now, if we wanted to kind of start small, which was initially Sam and I would kind of bird dogging this about 2 years ago, and we were looking at just start with an app, being able to pay by credit card, by your phone, and...
Yeah, so we have done that for cities, but the condition is, because again, it's not a moneymaker for us, we don't charge to use the mobile application. It's designed to move people into the IPS meters where they're fully integrated. So again, we can talk about how we could potentially make that happen. I'd have to find out internally if that's something we could do with you guys. But to answer the question, we have done it before.
So you have cities that are customers right now who just have the app?
No.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
Again, the condition was that, we're going to provide this service to them with them moving into the IPS meters as the solution.
Okay.
Right? Because again, if I just said to any city, oh yeah, you can use our mobile application, we don't make anything off it. It's not a real, value add for us at all.
Got it. Okay. I think that concludes my questions now.
And I'd ask Sam to come up, since he dressed up for us. I'd ask him to come up and speak to that if you'd like.
We worked hard on this, and we tried to come up. Andrew and we looked at a bunch of stuff, and we picked these guys because they're under one roof. We need to change what we have. Things are getting old. They're not working the way they used to. We get a lot of complaints, and I just think it's time to do something for the city. I know it's expensive, but I think we can come up with some kind of a plan to make this work. That's about all I have.
Very good. Alderman Senor?
I have a couple questions. First, you said the meters we're getting don't have the sensors to them. Is that correct?
The ones you're getting have sensors, yes.
They do have
one of them
sensors?
includes the sensors.
And that sensor does what? Again, explain that part to me.
Sure. So the sensor basically identifies what is going on in that spot. Is there an automobile or not, or a motorcycle or not? So what the ears do is they point at that space, and through a microwave technology, it gathers information. Once it realizes what it considers to be an automobile or a motorcycle, it communicates that information back to the back-end system. So from that back-end system, we can do two things. We can basically do the $0 reset that I mentioned. If the car pulls away, it'll reset that meter back to zero. All that cash goes in the pocket of the city. But within the Park Finder application, it'll identify spots that, in fact, are available. When you go and do the search, I'm coming into the city of Springfield, and I want to find a parking spot in this area. I pull up the application. It will actually identify not spaces that are expired, but spaces that do not have automobiles in them.
Is all that technology included in the price that you quoted to us?
Correct. Yes, it does.
And then this next question is probably for Director Mahoney. Director Mahoney, with the study going in for us to redo the downtown streets, has there been any thought to which ones we're going to install and which ones we're not going to install? Because I don't want new meters installed where we're going to have to come in and tear them out and redo the intersections and change the streets.
No, we'll take all that into account. There would be minor issues with that.
Okay.
Just how we place the meters and some of the parking maybe. So.
Okay. Thank you.
One more thing from the transition perspective. So the meters that you have today, Sam and I, we've done numerous walkthroughs, but the current housings that you have, IPS has done manufacturing to where our meters fit into those housings. So in fact, the transition, all you have to do is take out the internal mechanism within those meters, replace them with our mech, and then put our dome on them, and they're ready to go. They come equipped with cellular technology, and like I said, with the solar power, that's it. It's very, very quick, fast, and as you'll hear Sam say, from day one, you guys are making money off of these meters.
Alderwoman DeSenso?
The revenue that you have talked about generating, does that take into account the fact that, do all of your cities have weekend parking? Do they have meters?
Not all of them. Okay. Some do. In fact, a lot that we talk.
Most are Monday to Friday.
Yeah.
Just Monday to Friday?
8 to 6.
Okay.
Or 8 to 5, 8 to 6 range.
I had a few cities I'm working now that actually are seeing their busy times on the weekends. So they're actually really, really concentrating on the weekend hours to do the meters and enforcement against those meters. So yeah, like Randy said, the most do Monday through Friday, but we do have some that elect to go either 7 days a week or particularly on the weekends.
Like our beach communities on the East Coast and Jersey and stuff, they're doing it 7 days a week because they have to.
Yeah.
Right.
Alderman Redpath?
So the $700,000 contract, is that for 3 years?
$700,000 contract is for 3 years?
That's the total amount.
Yeah.
So how much of that is administrative cost? Because you guys are doing monitoring and that kind of thing?
Yeah, actually, it's included with a couple of things. So from a management perspective, you guys manage your own system. It's not IPS. We offer the customer support, so if you have questions and so forth. So we train you, we educate you, you do that. As far as the system goes, the system, we don't charge you anything for using the system. The meters themselves have a monthly fee that's charged for the meters. That includes the Verizon wireless connection that you have within that meter, as well as customer support that goes into that. And that's $5.75 per month per meter.
So you'll maintain ownership of the meters?
No, you own the meters.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then all the maintenance is done by us?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And the majority of that, like I said, it's very, these things work, but if there's an issue that happens, i.e. I'll give you a common one, there's, batteries need to be replaced, or there's a coin jam or something. So we teach, Sam and team how to respond to that. In fact, we give automatic notifications to end users that do the maintenance on them, so they in fact will know before the user experiences the issue. They can go out, change the battery, or they can take the screws off and clean that coin jam. If it's something bigger than that, then you would just send the meter. Like if we can't identify it, or our support manager cannot fix the problem right away on the spot, he'll say send it back to us and we can do a clean swap, or we can. You can have some spares on hand. Most of our clients do keep spares on hand, so who's ever doing that maintenance, they can walk right out to meter before they know anything. They take the top off, they pull the internal mech out, they put the new one in, and through an RFID integration we have, it automatically configures that meter to the settings that are defined for that spot. So literally, in a matter of seconds, you're up and running. And then, of course, they send that meter back to us, and we do that resolution.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Alderman McMenamin?
Mayor, thanks for the presentation. I heard it last week at Downtown Springfield, Inc. Thanks for being here. I've got a question for Sam, and the question is, it has to do with, gathering the information to make wise decisions. Sam, of our 1,500 meters, roughly how many of those 1,500 meters are malfunctioning in a given year that requires then labor to replace or labor to fix, or I guess we've got an inventory of
we've got an inventory probably about 2,000. I have a lot of extra meters that are mechs that we have. It fluctuates. I mean, it depending on the weather or which way the rain comes in that day or whatever. But what we have is we have old equipment, and they're starting to show their wear. They're not. Some of them aren't working properly. We have to change them out all the time and fix them. And I've fixed them. I've done a lot. I've been here a long time, so I put them in. We're starting to have some problems.
Yeah, I come across our residents and visitors are frustrated with the existing equipment. Last Friday at the courthouse, a lady came to the courthouse to pay a moving violation, but the parking meter was broken. She was worried she'd get a ticket while she went in to pay the other ticket. So the broken equipment is a problem.
It is, and we want to rectify that.
Okay.
We don't want people coming and worrying about getting a ticket when they're paying a ticket. So that's why we got these guys on board. So,
thank you.
Yeah. From a problem resolution standpoint, too, most of our customers have set reports that are generated in the morning when somebody comes into work. They get this report and they say, here's 10 items that I have to check or fix on very quickly. They run out and do that fix, and the meters, again, are up and running before anybody's aware that there's an issue. Should something happen live during the day, again, we can get an automatic notification generated from the smart meter back to our system that says, okay, meter 1, 2, 3, 4 is having an issue, appears to be X, and then you can obviously send somebody out to fix that before the end user has that problem and runs into that experience. So, oh my God, this isn't working, am I going to get a ticket? And all this dilemma that comes, we try to make sure they can avoid that.
And the person that maintains it will get a text message or email or both when a coin jam or something like that. So you're not waiting for one of your customers to call and say, look, I got a ticket, the thing's jammed. So you can fix the problem before there's a problem.
Any other questions or comments? I was going to say one other thing. When we do go into new cities or even talk to cities that have elected to move forward with IPS, and we've asked the question, how'd you decide to move forward? Most of them say, if you travel around the country, you're very familiar with the use of parking meters and the ability to pay with not just coin, but pay with credit cards, and how that makes life easier for those people. The city knows it has to generate revenue to support different areas within that community. The parking revenue is a great means to do that. In fact, most cities we talk to, parking revenue comes in the top 3 of revenue sources for the city. Personal property, some other things, et cetera. But again, as people start to accept that, it comes back to the community here in Springfield. Yes, you may get some pushback initially, people that don't want to pay for parking, but once they realize there's a lot of reasons why you do that, the acceptance comes pretty quick, especially as Randy mentioned with the big footprint that we have in Ohio. That's one example of one state. I may not have the footprint here in Springfield. Maybe it starts with or here in Illinois, sorry, maybe it starts with Springfield, but the point is, anywhere else you go across the country, you're going to find many cities that use us. And in fact, I encourage everybody to go into our website, view some of the client testimonials that are published in there. Some of them are, 2-minute videos, and they talk about what IPS has done for them and the ROI, the end user satisfaction, things like that. And again, I think it's going to carry a lot of weight for you all because there's a lot of money available in this market for you guys to take advantage of. It's just you can't do it with the coin operation. And Sam and I have a great relationship. We worked a long time, and I think he can tell you he's been doing this for for his entire career, but he knows a change that is at hand. It's just technology is there.
Great. Any other questions or comments? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks, boys. And again, we'll come back with additional information before anything's brought to the council for ordinance form. Chair will entertain a motion to dispense with the reading of the minutes of the March 20th, 2018 City Council meeting and approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second. Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Motion carries. Chair will entertain a motion to incorporate the pre-council first reading of ordinances into the record of this City Council meeting.
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. The chair will entertain a motion to incorporate the pre-council reading of the consent agenda into the record of this City Council meeting.
So moved. Second.
Been moved and second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion carries. Chair will entertain a motion to place the consent agenda on final passage.
So moved. Second.
Been moved and second. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion vote yes. Those opposed vote no. The voting is now open. And the consent agenda passes 9 voting yes, none voting no. With the exceptions pointed out by Alderman Fulgenzi. Agenda number 2015-121, 2017-103, 2017-266, 2017-435, 2017-436, 2017-470, 2017-475, 2017-489, 2017-532, 2017-533, 2018-005, 2018-110, and 2018-141 remain tabled or in committee. Next item on the agenda is number 2018-130, an ordinance authorizing payment of $30,000 to Lincoln Land Charity Championship for regional and local marketing and promotion of the PGA Tour Golf in Springfield, June 25th through July 1st, 2018, and authorizing a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $30,000 from unappropriated fund balance. The chair will entertain a motion to place agenda number 2018-130 on final passage.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and second. Any discussion? And we do have Kate Peters that signed up to speak. I don't know if you want her to come up first or if you want to discuss.
That's fine.
If you'd like to come up. State your name and address for the council. We'd appreciate it.
Kate Peters, 2821 Crown Point, Springfield. I signed up to speak tonight because there was a lot of discussion last time about the economic impact. I won't take a lot of your time, but I was able to talk with the tour and get some some numbers to share with you. So we know that we're generating almost 1,900 room nights with players, caddies, and tour staff. I went back so that we could try to capture some of the room nights for guests. And so they did some research for me, and based on our placement in the schedule, we're at the last week in June, so that puts us in the summer so people are able to travel. They estimate that 75% of the players will have about 2.5 guests staying an average of 3 room nights. So that's another almost 900 room nights. And so then we went and we did some further research on expenditures. And so they did some research with players and caddies, and we know that they're spending about $40 a day outside of their lodging expenses, which equates to almost $12,000 in incremental spending per day just with the players and the caddies. They also had access to some economic impact studies, and they know that non-local visitors, so those people that are traveling over 30 miles to attend a web.com tour event, they're spending about $207 a day. So in 2017, we had about 6,100 spectators that fell into that category, and that equates to over almost $1.3 million per day in spending. We also know that we had those almost 900 guests coming in for tour players, and so that's another almost $200,000. And so I have a lot of numbers here, and I don't expect you to regurgitate this. There's not a quiz later, but we know that local visitors, so those people traveling 10 to 29 miles, they're going to spend about $61 a day in our community. We had almost 8,000 spectators that fell into that category. So that's another almost $500,000 in expenditure here. So, you know, in doing all of these studies, we continue to fall in that 20% number. When we did that LPGA economic impact study in 2010, that was all driven by 67,000 spectators. And a lot of that economic impact, you'll remember, it was $23 million that we lost. So a lot of that economic impact was driven by those 67,000 spectators. We know that our spectator count in 2017 was right at about 20% of that. And so if we draw a conclusion that our economic impact on this community is at 20%, we're at almost $5 million. And so I wanted to share that this evening. I'm not going to take my whole 5 minutes, but I just wanted to impress upon you that your support is important. We are generating a significant economic impact, and we can't do it without support. If we don't invest in these things, we don't have these things. And so I appreciate your consideration. I hope I have your vote tonight. If there are any other questions you had, I'd be happy to take them.
Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right here.
Alderman Proctor?
Yeah, I just said, oh, Kate, I'm sorry, you come back up really quick. I just had a quick 2 questions about the stats you said.
Sure.
6,100, is that unique number of visitors or people that viewed the golf tournament?
Yes.
So unique numbers, okay. And then who verified the room nights?
Who verified the room nights?
Well,
if you'll remember, I've given you a couple of different reports. We know how many players and caddies stayed with local families. I can't regurgitate those to you tonight, but we know how many stayed with local families. And then this was exhaustive. I went back through and I looked at how many players made the cut, and of those that made the cut, how many of those then were staying with local families? And so, you know, we know that they stayed outside of local families. The percentage here was not as significant as it once was back in the day. So that's where we draw those numbers from. The numbers for the tour and Bruno event team staff, those were, I mean, we just know those. We're very involved in shipping those people out, you know, helping them find lodging and that sort of thing.
We'll make it clear. I have nothing against the golf tournament. I think it's, you know, something great to have in Springfield. My concern is we also have an entity up north that, you know, the Sliders that, you know, are competing for sponsorship dollars. And I'm just I keep hearing that there's only so many sponsorship dollars that go around. And I understand you're having problems, like you said last week, and they're having problems too. So it's one of those things where I want to be supportive of the golf tournament and help you out. Ralph, you and I talked previously, and if you would help me.
Yeah, and I'll be happy to help you on the slider thing too. I think, you know, whenever we can get entities that can bring people in, I think it's important that we support them. And, you know, I know it's the economic, or it's the CDBV's responsibility, but sometimes they try to reach out in far distances, and we've got to do something about getting people in here, even on, a couple-day trip and, within the area. And most of this money that you're requesting is going to be used to expand your advertising, correct?
Right.
So
Yeah.
hopefully we can expand it to where we get more people in from St. Louis, Indianapolis, some of these other places that will spend more money. So
I hate to
yeah,
keep comparing it to the LPGA because it's different, right? But we had it for 36 years, and for 31 of those years, we were on Labor Day weekend, and we had people plan their vacation around coming here to volunteer or coming here to watch. We can get there again. I know we can. I mean, it just takes, I don't want to come down here every year. I don't want this to be a line item in my budget. I have faith that we're going to find a title sponsor because it's a great product. The Masters this week, right? It's supposed to be sunny and nice out. That's when people are supposed to start thinking about golf here. We were really excited about that. But on Thursday, if you follow golf, the first group out of the Masters, those 3 guys that go out in the first group, have all played here. They all now have a tie to Springfield. They're able to compete in the Masters because we gave them a place to play.
So to that, Ralph, if you join me in asking for co-sponsor, direct Corporation Counsel to draft a similar ordinance for the sliders, matching $30,000 out of CVB, I'll support your ordinance.
I'll co-sponsor. Yeah.
Thank you. So Corporation Counsel, if we get something drafted like that, I'd appreciate it.
Alderwoman Turner?
I have the same concerns that. I have the same concerns that Alderman Proctor just raised. Unfortunately, I don't have anything to barter with, like the sliders.
The blues, you got the junior blues.
I appreciate the fact that, you guys made this little side deal here going on, but, what about those local Springfield events that we as a city should be supporting? I mean, we have the Black, White, and Blues Festival that is on the east side of Springfield. We got Juneteenth coming on that's on the east side of Springfield. So I guess, can I make my barter that, I will support this if you guys will support $10,000 for Juneteenth coming up?
I have not voted against anything that I don't, and as far as I know, that have come up on any of these.
I didn't say that you had.
Events,
I'm just interjecting that Springfield is broader than just these two events, and if we're going to, even in these very, very difficult times, if we are going to give $30,000 to web.com, if we're going to give $30,000 to the sliders, can we also support those local organizations that are providing activities on the east side of Springfield? So again, can we provide $10,000 for Juneteenth celebration?
Or National Night Out events.
Or as long as we keep taking it out of Convention and Visitors Bureau, I don't care where we pay it to, because as long as we don't take it out of the general revenue fund, because we have no money there.
If this was coming out of corporate, I wouldn't support it.
But you guys say it's not coming out of corporate. It's coming out of somebody's budget that they have budgeted their year's activities accordingly. So when we did the budget, we said, Convention and Tourism Bureau, you have X amount of dollars to do what you need to do for this fiscal year. So every time we go and dip into their budget, we're saying we still expect you to do everything that you said you were going to do, but now you have $60,000 less to do it with.
I think if I recall, though, that they had a surplus of over $2 million that they had not been using for the last couple of years.
Almost 4 million.
So I'm sorry, Chuck?
Almost $4 million.
And so my only point is if they're not going to use it to try to draw people in, then we should try to use that money to try to draw people in. That's my only point on this is, if it was, I do think that we need to support the different things to draw people in. I really believe that. And I think that, I've always supported everything that we've had in this town to try to help them out and, because I think it's important. Last year when we had we gave $100,000 to help during the summer for summer programs. I mean, I think we all voted for that.
I don't think we can compare those. Those are two totally different. That's not a comparable. And I have to echo what Alderman Turner says, because I was just talking to the young man that's running the Juneteenth celebration, and he's trying to get in touch with you, Mayor, so we can get something going that way. But I understand these events are important, but I see a distinction between the baseball team and the golf tournament, because the golf tournament's once a year. It's not going to any of the golfers, but it's going to, and correct me if I'm wrong, advertising for the tournament and marketing for the tournament, whereas the baseball goes directly to the organization, and I think they're and the guy and I are alumni. We went to the same college, so I have nothing against him personally, but we have to, like Chuck always says, we have to watch where our money goes because we're in tight budget times. And but going back to the sliders, that's going to them, and they use that for whatever purpose they want to use it for, whereas we know distinctly that this is coming out of the Convention and Visitors Bureau and it's going for advertising and marketing. So I see a distinct difference between the two, and I think we should be careful getting into the slippery slope, because now we're going to have more and more. We've opened ourselves up to more and more people coming and asking for different funds from the Convention and Visitors Bureau if they say we're going to do it for marketing. So just wanted to make that statement. But I do respect everyone's wishes and everyone's concerns, but I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, and I'd asked Pat Corcoran if she'd correct me or want to add to it. The $2 million, what that's set aside for is if the state doesn't come through on their funding. And so, especially for the last 2 years without a state budget, that's we're relying on their grant funds, but that's why they plan ahead to make sure that we have coverage in case we don't get that support. The other thing with the hotel motel, and that's kind of what the discussion has been, is for the hotel lodging, it's putting heads in the bed. I remember when we first came out with the support for web.com, we had that spirited debate with the hotel lodging group. And, I was from the standpoint that I think it's beneficial, but that's what you get into when you're starting to drill down on those dollars for other activities, as Alderman Senor had stated, and that's where we have to make that determination. Otherwise, we'll get bombarded for funds. But I don't know, Pat, if you have anything to add to that, or if you come up to the mic, that'd be great.
I just want to clarify what our operating fund is. There is not $2 million sitting in another fund somewhere that's just sitting there. It's, if you can just equate it to your own checkbook, we have $2.1 million. And of that, $1.75 million has been appropriated for our FY19 budget. So there's not $2 million sitting out there that hasn't been used. And there's certainly not $4. So I'm, and I'm proud of the fact that we have been very frugal with the taxpayers' money, and we have built that fund up because we anticipated that there could be, in the future, a possibility of not getting state grants. So we could continue and operate at the same level of service that we give visitors currently. So I just wanted to clear that up. And, we can't fund everything.
Alderman Donlin.
Thank you, Mayor. I intend on voting for this and for the economic reasons that were outlined. But Ms. Peters, what do you expect to do next year?
What do I expect to do next year?
Do you expect to come back and ask for more funds, or do you know yet?
Well, I don't know yet, but I can tell you that we're actively searching for a title sponsor. Whether we have one or we don't, I feel like the city should support this in some way. I intend to come back and give you a report after the 2018 tournament and show you what we've done, and I have every expectation that our numbers will continue to grow. I have new potential title sponsors identified, I don't want to say weekly, but a couple come up, every month, and we vet those and we work really hard on them. So I would love to not be back here next year.
Well, I appreciate your honest answer, and that is appreciated. When it comes to the sliders or whatever other organization is interested in funds, Mayor, I appreciate your comments about heads and beds, because that's the purpose. Those are the purposes of the funds, obviously. And my vote will not be contingent upon support of any other thing that's been talked about this evening. However, if there are other events and things that do come forward, I absolutely would consider those on a mutually exclusive basis. I think that's the only fair way to do it, and evaluate whether they put heads in beds. And
I would like to address one other issue, and that's the whole economic impact that it has on the city, because the numbers we use and the formula we use comes from the U.S. Travel Association, and Destinations International, which they're the two leading organizations in the tourism and travel industry. And there's different ways that you can figure economic impact. It's a lot easier if it's a convention and meeting, because you know exactly how many rooms are being used, you know how many attendees there are, and that type of thing. But when it's an event, it's very difficult to actually come up with a valid economic impact. And the way those two organizations figure economic impact for an event, and it's the way the state of Illinois, almost all states figure it is, that's considered a leisure visitor. And sorry, I'm just nervous because when someone said $4 million in our fund, it got me upset because of that misconception. So when you're figuring economic impact, the visitor needs to be more than 50 miles or spend the night to be considered a visitor. If you know the numbers for this, on average, leisure visitors spend $75 a day. Local visitors cannot be counted because you are just displacing money that would be spending on something else in the city at the same time. So in most cases, you want to consider what is coming from outside the area or generating overnight stays in hotels. So, you know, it's hard to say, I mean, she's going based on what, her organization, the way they do impact studies, but this is the way the tourism and travel industry does it. So just to give you the flip side of the pancake.
Good. Any other questions?
Mayor?
Yeah, Alderman Tanner.
One thing I think down the road, what we ought to look at is, I'm just throwing this out there, I don't know if it can be done, but maybe we ought to treat the CDVB money like TIF, where people we can allocate it, but they have to come back with set some parameters or whatever on what they spend their money on, if it's advertising or whatever, where we can reimburse. I don't know if that's feasible, but it would be something that you're not giving it to somebody and you don't know where it's going. They only get, and I'm saying that to throw it out for future, looks maybe, after this year, and or if that can even be done, I don't know. So
yeah, we'd do some checking what other convention visitors bureaus do with regards to that.
Yeah, and I mean, our job is to fill hotel rooms. Mm-hmm. Our job really, isn't to give money out to just any event that wants money. So, and, I've been here for almost 30 years. So when we were in the infant stages of tourism, and tourism has grown so much over 30 years, it's unbelievable. I look at our budget back 30 years ago compared to now, and it's unbelievable. But, so, and that $30,000, I mean, Alderman Proctor, you've talked about getting more meetings and conventions here. That will buy a lot of conventions at $30,000.
Alderman Proctor?
No, I agree with you. And one conversation I had with Hotel Motel Association people is that there's things we can do to improve the the city experience that they're all for, because that's a way to improve the experience when you're here. And so when we keep hearing that there's surplus money that keeps pooling up in the CVB fund, whether it's $2 million or $4 million or whatever it is, we know it keeps growing each year. And it's just, so let's find ways to spend it to support anything we can to improve the local experience. And I'll support anything, that, supports the, improves the local experience, whether it's a festival or whatever, that we think is worthy of, some of that money. And to Alderman Senor's point about, the sliders, if we craft an ordinance, whenever Ralph and I put it together, or if we don't, it could be tied to things, because one thing that's not, about the stadium is it's a wreck right now. It's owned by the Park District, and it's a wreck, and it's in bad shape. And you can tie the dollars to be improving the facility anyway, to improve the experience while you're there. And it's just one thing that needs to help out with the stadium. So it's not going to go, like I think when we had this debate last year, and Chris Tylen mentioned it, doesn't, I think when we were talking about the $15,000 that the mayor originally did for the sponsorship, it doesn't go right in his pocket. It goes to help either fix the stadium or bring people to Springfield or whatever, but there's ties to it. It's not just a blanket grant.
Well, you ought to be calling the Park District to come fix
Oh, we've been dealing with that.
Because Park District owns the
Park District so it's just a continual issue that we have to deal with when they're playing baseball at the stadium.
Alderman Senor?
Pat, did anybody do a study on the Kevin Hart concert and how that was a big draw? And how successful that was, and why was that so successful? And are we going to do more events like that? I think if we could capture that, that would be a wonderful thing. But nobody's even talked about that. We haven't heard nobody's come up in front of this council and said, we had this concert. It broke records for attendance at the convention center, and this is what we need to do more of.
She's not over the convention center.
Yeah,
I know I just asked if they did a study, Alderman DeCenzo.
No, we didn't do a study, but we did meet with Brian Oakes, and he shared with us how successful it was.
So is there any, are they planning on doing more events like that? And
I don't know.
Were there any room nights were there any room nights available from that, or what?
I don't know.
We'll check with the hotel lodging and see it'd be pretty easy to track what their numbers were that night.
Yeah,
so
and I get a
report
report every month, and so I know how many rooms are used every day of the month. So, I know how many rooms are being used. I know how many conventions are in town versus...
And my point is, we keep pushing everything back to the Hotel Motel Lodging Association, and if that's so important that when we have events that we put heads in beds, if we're having events like that draw a lot of people, are those people staying? And that's my question. Are those people staying, or are they just coming and leaving?
Both. I'm sure there's a percentage who stays, especially if they're consuming alcohol. They don't want to drive back to their communities.
So I think to Alderman Senor's point and Alderman Proctor's is what we should do is try to piggyback events or activities, and hopefully we turn that into overnight stays, and that's why it's important to get microbreweries here, because I heard microbreweries.
The other thing is, we could budget more,
The more you have downtown or wherever.
We could budget $200,000 to entice conventions to come, or $300,000 a year. If we could entice more conventions to come, then we're going to spend down our fund.
Alderman Fulgenzi.
You seem to indicate that there's a correlation between how much money we spend and how many conventions we get. So could we get a number that says if we spend $100,000, we'll get so many dollars that are spent here in town and have a profit on that?
Well, we have a formula for how many conventions, or how many attendees are at a convention, how many are using hotel rooms. And, on the average, it's $112 a day is what convention attendees spend.
I know,
so if we give that convention $5,000 or $15,000 in incentives working with SHLA, then we can tell you how much economic impact it has on the city.
But you made a statement that said if we had $30,000 to give to conventions, we'd get a lot more conventions.
We would get more conventions.
I know, but we've also said that we've had more than $30,000 left in the account. Why aren't we spending it?
Because we haven't had the authority to spend it.
Yeah, I think when it comes down to Alderman Fulgenzi, what you brought up is a good point, and it's conversations we had with the hotel lodging group, is sometimes when they're trying to get conventions, they have to have authority. You know, they have a fund that they can tap into, but we may come back once we have a tourism director to ask for an amount set aside where if they are trying to attract a convention, what's that dollar amount they would have the authority to try to lure the convention, because we're in a competitive marketplace and they have to make a spot-on decision what we can provide with regards to incentives. A lot of times it's tied to the hotel stays. They'll do a reimbursement back to the group. Sometimes it's free parking. And so that's something that we need to coordinate or have a better coordinated effort that has not been there with the hotel lodging, because they're lobbying on our behalf, same with the Convention Visitors Bureau and the Convention Center, and all being synced with making that approach, whether it's conventions or any other type of business we're trying to bring to the city. Alderman DeSenza.
Alderman Senor, I apologize if I was rude earlier. It's just frustrating to me because we're talking about these different entities. We're talking about the SMEA board. We're talking about the Park District. So I worked in tourism for 15 years. I know how it works. And I think when Pat is talking about not having the spending authority, I think she's talking about not having it internally.
Yes.
Am I correct?
Yes, you're correct.
Okay. So you don't have the authority to spend money internally?
Well, yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. But Mayor Langfelder has said that he wants to have more discussion on budgeting more funds for conventions, but then once we get an executive director, they can have that conversation.
Okay.
But currently, internally, I can't just say to a salesperson, yes, give that convention $10,000 to come here.
And I agree with Alderman Senor. We should have more events like the Kevin Hart
Yes.
concert, performance, whatever you call it, because that was a huge moneymaker.
Your mic wasn't on.
We need a green light, red light.
That's right.
Any other questions or comments? Alderman McMiniman.
Mayor and Ms. Peters, you've done a good job promoting the golf tournament. I understand the economic impact statements that promote the golf tournament. What's key in my mind is that 3 years ago, we justified the $30,000, or that was 2 years ago. This is the third year. 2 years ago, we justified the $30,000 as part of seed money, startup, and to get something good going in Springfield. And I always thought we were going to phase it out. So that's why last year I voted no. And so if anyone's keeping track of votes, yeah, good. And maybe Alderman Hanauer is too, because it's a Ward 10 place. But I'm a no at 30,000, but I'd be a yes at 20,000. I think we should then take it down next year, because I think it's going to be a real problem if we start subsidizing continuing events. I think it makes sense to subsidize something to get it off the ground and get it started. But I think if we subsidize whether it be the sliders or the golf on a continuing basis, I think it's a problem for our budget and for our hotel motel tax fund. So that's my thoughts on this.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
The other thing I wanted to say really quickly is we just raised 2 taxes in the city, and people don't differentiate between the different accounts. And all I hear is stop spending money. I think we all hear it from our constituents. Stop spending, stop spending, stop spending. I realize it takes money to make money. I get it. But I haven't had a single phone call from a single constituent saying, please vote for this. So that's why I'm a no vote. It's not that I don't believe in this tournament. It's not that I'm a golf hater. It's not any of those reasons. I just think that in my experience working with tourism that, this is the 3rd year. And I believe the first year the ask was $15,000.
It was 30.
It was 30? Okay.
Yeah.
So
I wasn't involved then. I would like to respond to Alderman McMiniman if I could.
Sure.
I wasn't involved the first year of the tournament, and I know they came down and they said it was a 1-year ask. These things take time. It's all I can tell you. If I had been involved the first year, I would have been brutally honest with you and said, I don't want to come back down here, but I can't promise you I'm not going to. I respect your opinion. I think we're going to get to the point where we're not going to need to come down here. I really believe that. So, I mean, that's all I can tell you. I really believe that we're going to get to that point. We're going to get a title sponsor. We've had some really great conversations. Springfield is a great community for this because we know how to do it. We have a great course. It happens to be in Ward 10. It benefits the entire city. I'm a believer. You guys know that.
Alderman Redpath.
Ms. Peters, I really appreciate your explanation and the hard work you put into trying to come up with the numbers to justify this. We get people that come up here all the time saying, I'll get back to you, I'll tell you the stuff. You came back last year and told us exactly what you told us you were going to do. The explanation that you gave, I know it's tough to compete with other stuff, but your explanation was pretty good, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I plan on voting for this if I can get Alderman Hanauer to agree to support the Redpath sailboat races at the lake.
I know.
Are those cardboard?
Thank you.
I think Chuck's is cement.
Any other questions or comments?
Does somebody have a list?
I've been keeping a list.
Have you been keeping a list? Okay.
One more.
Sure, Alderman Senor.
Can you explain, like, if there's a not-for-profit group out there that wants to sell tickets, how they go about, who they would contact, and what is the result of them selling the tickets?
Yes. If there is a not-for-profit group that needs to raise funds, they need to call the tournament office. I assume this is recorded, so the number is 670-2910. We have to verify that they're a 501c3. We need their 501c3 determination letter. Once we get them signed up, they are a charity recipient. The more they promote ticket sales, the more money they make. We keep no portion of that. So if they sell 100 tickets, they get $1,000. They sell 1,000, they're getting $10,000. And I want to see 10 charities sell $10,000 worth of tickets. I think it'd be fantastic.
So all the tickets that they sell, the money goes back to them?
Yeah, the sailboat race, they could do that. Okay.
And that number again was 670?
670-2910. It's a quick application as long as we have that determination letter. It doesn't take long.
Great. And do you have a website people can go to?
LincolnLandChampionship.com.
LincolnLandChampionship.com?
Yep.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion vote yes. Those opposed vote no. The voting is now open. And the ordinance passes 6 voting yes, 3 voting no. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is number 2018-139, an ordinance authorizing payment in the amount of $4,590,917 to the Energy Authority, Inc., and Mid-Continent Independent Systems Operator, Inc., for transmission schedule fees for fiscal year 2019 for the Electric Division of the Office of Public Utilities. Chair will entertain a motion to place agenda number 2018-139 on final passage.
So move.
Second.
Been moved and second. Any discussion? All those in favor vote yes. Those opposed vote no. The voting is now open. And the ordinance passes 9 voting yes, none voting no. Next item on the agenda is number 2018-140, an ordinance amending Chapter 50, Section 50.30 of the 1988 City of Springfield Code of Ordinances as amended regarding electric utility for the Office of Public Utilities. Chair will entertain a motion to place agenda number 2018-140 on final passage.
So moved. Second.
Been moved and second. Any discussion?
I don't recall what this was about. Can you tell me, Doug, again, please?
This one is basically for what we call the high load factor rate. So it's a really low rate that's very competitive to bring in, like basically a data center. We are kind of on a internet highway, you might speak with fiber going from St. Louis to Chicago, Indianapolis. So we think we have a unique capabilities to attract that, but we need a lower rate. So this data center is going to come in and it's going to have a really high load around the clock, 24/7, so they're going to consume a lot of power. That means we can offer them a lower rate.
Okay, so it's just an incentive for...
It's an incentive to attract basically businesses. And we're not going to lose, revenue by doing that because they're going to consume a large amount of power.
Okay. so we'll turn all the plants on.
Alderman Hanauer?
Doug, my understanding is if we are at a competitive disadvantage by not having it presently, is that right?
Correct, yes. Yeah, there's no data centers that want to be attracted to our location with our rates right now.
I'd like to encourage many data centers out by the airport. That would be a wonderful location.
Might get hit by a plane or something.
Alderman Hanauer?
I had a constituent contact me regarding, are we looking at doing some off-peak rates for, I think he charges his car at night or something. He's got an electric car. So are we looking at that too? That, I know this doesn't include that, but is that coming down? I know we had a list of things at the utility meeting that you were talking about. Is that part of it?
Yes, yeah. So we're offering, well, we will be providing the council with an ordinance within the next 2 months, basically, an electric charging vehicle rate. So that would basically, it's going to allow off-peak charging at a more of a discount for that.
Thank you.
That way we can shift the load. And it's really not about now. This is about really the future, as more electric vehicles come on or come into the city.
Any other questions, comments? All those in favor of the ordinance vote yes. Those opposed vote no. Voting is now open. The ordinance passes 9 voting yes, none voting no. Chair will entertain a motion to suspend the rules and place on first reading agenda number 2018-177, an ordinance authorizing the execution of contract number PW 18-20 with TRB, Inc. for branch pickup and disposal services from May through June 2018 for an amount not to exceed $160,000 for the Office of Public Works.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and second. Any discussion? Alderman Senor.
Is this a different company than we had last year? Or is
this a different company than last year?
We didn't have a company last year. This is actually, we put an RFP out to help with the branch collection.
okay, so this is totally new.
Springfield. It is, exactly.
Okay, and is that, what are your, before you leave, what is your feelings since you put this out? What is your feelings? Is this going to be something good? Are we starting something new? Is this a trial and error or what?
It's just a way to assist with the branch collection. We've looked at this several years ago, and we went back at it just because we're short-staffed. During the budget, we lost an operator. Our temporary budget was cut down, so we usually bring on 2 operators during the summer months, so we're going to cut that back to 1 for a shorter period of time. So really, it's reducing our crews and our ability to if we pull everybody and put them on branches in the spring and the fall, it causes problems. So we looked at the Waste Recycling Fund, which supports a lot of the branch and the yard waste collection. So what we did was we put an RFP out to help with the collection, and we got a couple proposals, worked through those, and this is one of the vendors. So they would actually do the collection of the branches and dispose of them at the Evans site that we have a contract with.
And is the collection and is the disposal part of the contract cost, or would that be a separate cost?
That's already under our current contract for all of our disposals. This is another piece of it. This is for actually their equipment. They're going out, they're picking up the branches. So it's the same thing we've been doing. They're just helping with it. So
thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion carries. Is there any unfinished business come before the City Council? Any?
I don't know if it's unfinished business, but it's something we have talked about in the past. We're having major issues with animal control almost on a daily basis. They only work Monday through Friday, and I had a constituent call yesterday. It was 10:30 in the morning, and they weren't open yet. They don't work weekends. It just seems to be an increasing problem. There was 2 dogs that had gone viral on Facebook over the weekend that were chained up in the snow, in the cold. There's no one to go get these dogs because there's no one to call. So I just think we need some sort of better system. We're paying a lot of money to the county for these services, and I feel like we're being underserviced.
Director McCarty, do you know if there's a 24-hour call-in service, or how's that work? I thought there was.
My understanding is that they work the set hours like Alderman DeCenzo was talking about, but in an emergency situation that they would be deployed. But I think an emergency situation would be something like, a dog attack or something of that nature, a vicious animal, not necessarily like an animal being kept in the snow.
So the police would have to make that call, I
Yeah,
guess?
that's what I was going to say. What they consider to be an emergency is that you call 911.
Yep.
It has no correlation with the animal control.
And when's the contract up? Do you know, Director McCarty?
We typically do these on a year-to-year basis.
So we probably should add that to the next contract, I would think, that there should be someone on call.
They do not do wild animals either.
I know the aldermen are on call every day, right?
Yes, we are, 24/7.
That's right. So
That's usually when I get my calls at 2:30 in the morning.
That's because you're on the lake.
Uh-huh.
yes.
just me.
Dial, if
Sorry.
you come up, please.
Just for the record, animal control is on call, but if they're not working, we will be sent first, evaluate the circumstances, and call them in. So they do have an on-call system, but it runs through our discretion in those type of situations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other unfinished business? New business?
Yes.
Yes, Alderman Proctor.
Is Chief Wenzel here, or are you? Or,
No, sir.
I guess, okay. Well, if you can come up real quick. Just, we just need to talk about Thursday night, I think, just really quick. A few things happened Thursday night, it sounds like. We got some calls about it. There's some probably cracks in the system where maybe unfortunately the body probably should have been discovered quicker than 10 hours. It's unfortunate the Chief's not here because I want him to talk about the conversations we had. But just really quick, have you been involved in those discussions about what he's going to do to improve upon to try to address the cracks in the system, especially with individuals that called 911 or dispatch and unfortunately didn't get a response back, or have an officer visit and talk about what happened? It's probably unfair for you to be addressing these questions if
It's
the Chief's not
completely
here, but-
fair. I'm the deputy chief of field operations, so the men and women that responded that night in uniform fall under my division. And from the officers that responded all the way up to the chief, it's a punch in the gut. We all drop our heads because we know we should have done better. That night in question, there was enough people that called in. There was enough information available to us that there was a lot of information available to us, and I think that's what led to it. We missed the one piece that would have made a difference. We reviewed this. The officers went there. They talked to several people. They went in several directions, and they missed the piece that would have made a difference. So what we're trying to do going forward is to improve upon the communication, reiterate to our officers the importance of reviewing everything you have, and we want to be more proactive in reaching out to citizens who leave their name, leave their phone number, so that before we leave, we know that we have everything that they have so that we can make the best search that we possibly can. And those are the kind of things we're looking at moving forward with doing.
No, those are perfect, because that's what the chief, when we talked it through too, and I just want to kind of give you an opportunity to talk about those as well, because we did get some complaints, and then also about someone tried to contact us through the web, or contact me through the website, for the city website, and that came on Friday when the city was closed, and so we're addressing that with IT now. So people who do contact an alderman through the website, that know that during normal business hours they'll be forwarded, but during non-business hours it won't be forwarded to the alderman. So I think was addressed with Council Coordinator Griffin and Jeanette. They fixed that with IT. But the main point is just wanted to bring that forward, that you guys are taking corrective action to try to fix what happened Thursday night.
We are, and I know everyone in the department's working hard to bring the person to justice that committed this heinous crime, actually. So,
yeah,
yes.
Thanks.
And if you could tell us what the protocol is if someone calls up for information. I imagine if it's, I don't know what you're able to give out or how that works, and calling people back, and because I would, personally, I would think I don't know how that works. I wouldn't. I think you'd wait till after you have information that you can divulge, but if you
are you talking
say
about
what the normal protocol? I think Alderman said that people call and ask, or they call the police department or 911, and we're expecting a response, and so.
And then they go post and are trying to get answers as to why there was a lack of response?
Right, I guess. I'm not sure what the, is that what the
I think
questions were?
in one case, I don't think they ever got a response back. And it sounds like that might not have occurred. It might have occurred. We just don't know. So it's just trying to address those kind of follow-throughs, I guess.
Were they trying to get information, or what were
No,
Oh, they were
I think they're trying to
calling in.
share evidence or share, not evidence, but share information about what they heard and happened.
Or they were calling in shots fired.
Yeah, I guess we'd recommend that they leave their phone number to 911 dispatch.
They
so,
did.
Yeah.
Correct. For
So-
called in shots fired, leave their name, their phone number, so that we could follow up and speak with them. That was there. Usually, oftentimes, it's not though, so that's why I use this as an opportunity to encourage that on a regular basis.
Alderman DeCenso, Senor.
It's actually in Alderman Proctor's ward, but I live very close to where this happened. And, it started, the onslaught started immediately of people just wanting to know, shots were fired, and I'm very active on the Nextdoor app, which if you're not, then you don't know what you're missing. But it's a very involved app, and we're not here to chew you out. We want to make sure this doesn't happen again. It was I saw it on my way to work because I live a few blocks from where it happened, and I work a few blocks from where it happened. So I saw it on my way to work, and I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? So this is an area, and there's been several comments on social media, there's no nocturnal crime in this area, which isn't true. There's been several recent break-ins in that area. There's been several vehicle thefts in that area. There's been several domestic incidents in that area. So, I think what we have to explain to the general public is that this is an ongoing investigation, and we don't know, and you guys are trying to solve the crime. So we're not going to have all the information. And I guess that's what's frustrating for us is we get questions. I took calls all weekend. So we get, what happened? Who was it? What happened? Where's he live? Where's this? And I can't answer those. I'm not equipped to answer those. And this is what your job is. And so I think we need to do a better job of educating the public of the kind of information that we can give out.
We being the department to them?
Yes.
It goes back to my question. I imagine you cannot divulge certain information, and I think the general public, I guess, what's the protocol for releasing information with regards to any incident like this?
Well, when there's an active investigation going on, we're going to be very limited on the information we release until that investigation has been resolved. If public safety, if ever there were a case where public safety trumped that, then that's something we would discuss and likely release. We would release the information necessary to keep the public safe. So that public always needs to understand that. And I think that's the fundamental thing that is most important to them, obviously. A, that we try to solve the crime, and B, that when something bad happens, they can feel safe, and that if we thought there was an immediate threat to them, we would certainly get that out there.
And I think that just needs to be reinforced because these people in this area are scared.
Right.
They think there's someone that they're afraid to take their trash out at night.
But they need to get a dog. I'm going to tell you something.
Well, I've got two, and they don't bark at all.
The bottom line is that these guys have a job to do. They can't compromise an investigation.
Oh, no, I agree with you.
No, I'm not arguing with you. I'm just telling you that they're doing the best they can to try to get this thing solved. And they got people beating doors down all over the place, and it's very complicated.
But that didn't happen that night,
But
Alderman.
here's the thing. They can't tell us, and they shouldn't be. We shouldn't be the people that the police come and tell us, well, this is what's going on, because if a police officer tells me what's going on in an investigation, I'm calling the chief and telling him he needs to have days off because he shouldn't be telling me or anybody else he's going to be compromising the safety of the police officers and the neighborhood. And what the chief's saying here is that if there's a situation where the safety of the public is at risk, that compromises that. I mean, that takes the next level.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but when you have scared people and when you have a body lying in an alley for 10 hours.
Well, did it get up and come over there? I mean, it's dead. It ain't going nowhere.
I mean,
that's right.
They did call it. That's what I'm saying. They called and they got no response.
Alderman Senor?
Hey, Chief, when things of this nature happen, how can we as aldermen get information, just enough information to tell the people that are calling us, asking us what's going on? How can we obtain the information and say, well, this is what's happening, this is all we know? Because a lot of times things happen and the public knows before you do. So how can we obtain that information so we can put it out to the public or our constituents that, you don't need to call me, but this is what's happening, and not infringe upon what you all are doing? I mean, is there somewhere where we can call as an alderman and get some information?
Case by case, based upon what we can put out, I would say the on-duty watch commander, calling the phone number that leads to them, they can make the call on exactly what's available and what we can give out at that time. If they have any questions, they would take it up the chain of command, and we would reach out to you, case by case basis.
An example is something like this, like somebody called me and said, what's going on 19th and Ash, whatever, and is there someone I can call and say, can you give me some general information without compromising what you all are doing? Because I wouldn't want to do that, but yet as the alderman for that area, I would like to know what's going on.
When I just come back to, I know you're speaking particularly about after hours, and that's always going to fall back to the on-duty lieutenant to hear what it is they're asking. And to Alderman Redpath's concern, if we give it out, is that going to compromise officer safety or any sort of investigation? And then move forward from there on giving you all whatever the best is we can give you at that time.
To be clear, that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is 5 people called in a 911 call when they heard the shots fired at 10 o'clock. That's what we're talking about. I'm not talking about anything else. The ongoing investigation, I am fine and dandy with telling people that. That's not the issue.
No, I understand what you're talking about. Just for my information, I wanted to know for me what the procedure would be without compromising anything and disturbing what you all are doing.
I mean, if you even individually called one of the staff, we would have to backtrack that to the watch commander, or if it was something the detective was on, to find out what exactly is going on that we could give out of our own volition as well. So that's kind of how the focus is going to be right there at the watch commander at any given point, is that intermediary to see what we can put out.
To make it easier, contact the NPO. Let them do the legwork, and then that's what they're there for.
And then, Mayor, I do have a follow-up question, because all these latest victims have been 22 and younger, which goes back to, are we going to roll out another summer program? Are we going to start concentrating on the youth again? Are we going to have something, a jobs fair or something that we can, direct these people to and let them know that there's something out there for them to do instead of this?
Yeah, we're going to, really the nighttime activities where it's at. So the outlet, they stepped up to the plate last year. We'll try to do something similar. We have to identify resources. Of course, summer programs, as far as what we're able to do, is very limited with regards to summer employment. So, outside of that, that's going to be probably it.
All right, thank you.
Alderman Turner?
There was a hit-and-run incident that occurred on West Lakeshore Drive between Devonshire and Queensway. Can you check into that and see if you have any more information? And then you can just let me know later. You can call me or email me and let me know later. And the reason why I'm asking is because several people contacted me about it and said that they didn't know. It happened several weeks ago, and no one had heard anything or got any information. And then they saw an obituary in the paper today, and they were concerned that that was the individual that was involved in the hit and run.
Not sure about that. I would have to look
I know,
into
that's why I'm just saying if you could check into it and just let me know.
Will do.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions for Chief Stokes? Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Sorry to grill you.
Any other new business? I think we did do a ceremony at HSHS with regards to Prevent Child Abuse. Illinois, they put that on, and April is Prevent Child Abuse Month. And you can go to the website at preventchildabuse.org to see how you can spread awareness. One item that we probably don't, some might not realize, is deals with the police department, first responders. with UIS. They have a simulation lab out there where it used to be a credit union out at UIS, and now they've turned it into a house where they can educate our first responders or any individual on what to look for when they make a house visit. And in addition to that, they also have a courtroom set up at UIS to help educate our attorneys when they are involved in those cases. So it helps them get real-life experience from a simulation standpoint with regards to trying to prevent child abuse. So that's one way that a lot of different entities come together. It's with DCFS, HSHS, and Prevent Child Abuse Illinois that made it happen today, which we appreciate them making that level of awareness for everybody. So any other items before we open it up to the public? Request Mario Angolia, if you'd like to come up and speak.
Folks, Mario Angolia, 127 South Grand Avenue West, Metro Mario's Tailoring. Been there 26 years now. A stitch in time.
I didn't advertise.
Paid for by. I'm also the former president of the Vinegar Hill Association, and I hate to bring it up again, but I had a murder 2 doors down from me a couple years back. Pauline Homeyer, the music teacher. And then prior to that, the house has been knocked down, but there was a couple that got into a domestic dispute, and the wife killed the husband. And around the corner over there by Passfield and Edwards, there's been another murder a couple years back. So unfortunately, our area is not murder-free, if you will. A lot of this stuff is occurring because I call them little hot pockets of where dope is being distributed. And the dope would be crack cocaine, and other hard substances. And I have a little hot spot right across the street from me in a parking lot that on the first of the month, when everybody gets their checks, they go over to the dope man that's backed up against the street there on South Grand, right across the street there. And they do their little drug interactions, and it's almost as convenient as getting a sandwich. And then as the night progresses, when everybody's gone home from that area, the working man goes home, you have a little bit more, I would say, thumping of the stereos, and a little bit more, they're more visible, if you will. And then they're out there, when the bars are closed, 2 to 3 in the morning, they're out there fist fighting or drawing guns on each other. So this is, to me, I've seen this on and going for like 26 years. It is a good neighborhood. At the same time, it's close to government entities. The distribution of drugs, of course, is, again, they go back to the hot spots. And so I have no clue what happened around the corner on Henrietta and Williams. I'm sure it was something to do with a couple of people that had a disagreement about whatever, and some poor kid lost his life, and his parents now have a son that's deceased. So in my opinion, why can't we step up the war on drugs in Springfield? Why can't we get involved in capturing these people before they go around and getting their money from these poor kids that are running dope on the streets? And why don't these kids in the age group between 15 to 20 have a job? I mean, most of them don't even want to work that are involved in that industry. They make money on the street. They make it quick. They don't have to work, you know. You have to sit at McDonald's. My first job out of high school was working at McDonald's for, when I was 15. I think I made $1.75 an hour, you know. But those days are over. The quick cash is what they're looking for. and places to distribute it. Or the places are usually little convenience stores or parking lots that are well lit, that they can go in and out, and there you have it. And unfortunately, in my area, that seems to be it. So if you could step up the police influence in those areas or have a crackdown someday, when it warms up, it's going to get crazier. I mean, right now, everybody stays indoors, you know, and we're already having high crime. So why don't we step this up and put a little personal attention on these areas? You know, convenience stores, stores that have parking lots are well lit. They sell alcohol, or they sell drug paraphernalia. They sell crack pipes at these places. They sell individual cigarettes. They bust up a pack of smokes and sell a cigarette for 50 cents a piece. That comes up to be $20 a pack. So these are the owners that own these businesses that are doing it. I've seen them do it all day long. So that's what I want you guys to be aware of. It's happening, and it's happening quickly. And it's going to warm up, and it's going to get worse. So let's address it while we can.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
Any questions or comments?
We are aware.
Yeah, but it still keeps happening.
Right.
Still does.
Well, thank you.
You bet.
Thank you, Mario.
Jim Kiefer? Jim Kiefer here? Carrie doesn't have a last name.
Tate.
Carrie Tate. Anybody else wish to address the council?
I would like to.
Sure.
The deputy chief back there looked at me and said, "Be careful," okay? So I have to be careful. But you know what? Every neighborhood in here has an NPO, and we use ours a lot. We really do. He comes to our meetings. He associates with us. He knows everything that goes on in our neighborhood because of Big Mouth. But besides that, we have a nice neighborhood, very few crimes. But we do have 3 people that don't like to have their garbage picked up. And Doris already knows about that. But when people call into 911 and say, "I heard shots," and the lady or the gentleman on the other end of the phone says, "May we have your name and your telephone number for we could let you know whatever the question may be." And if they don't, the people that call in do not give their names, it's awful hard to generate understanding, okay? And when we had shots in our neighborhood, I went outside and I found out about it. I called and I got what I needed to protect the neighborhood because there was kids in there. So if you are going to be non-active, then you have nothing to say. But if you're going to be active, you got a lot to say. Now, I know this police force is cut to the bone. It's in too big of sections, and they need to have help. And the help is you, and you. Whether you go outside and say, "Hey, Charlie, why are you shooting the gun?" You don't have to do that. What you need to do is be eyes, mouth shut, ears open, and tell your neighborhood police officer. He's the one that knows everybody in the neighborhood. He knows how to get around. And I'm sorry for the body had to lay for 10 hours. But when people call in, they'll say, "Oh, it was in the alley," or "it was next door in the middle of 2 houses." Then that's what they need to know. Not say, "Oh, 2 shots were fired in the air." They need to know particulars, or they cannot do their job. And if the neighbors do not open up their doors when there's a knock on the door, they're not going to get nowhere. And I understand it. And the reason why I understand it, I had 2 chiefs in my family and a sheriff. So you see, I understand that part. And it's hard work when you're out there. They don't run away from trouble. They're there. And they don't sit in their car while somebody's getting raped either. They're there, okay? And the fire people are the same way. Sometimes I call the fire department just direct because I have it on speed dial. But it's the idea that you have all these entities. If we don't use them, we're not helping our city. And that's what you need to tell your neighbors. Hey, you got an NPO, you got his telephone number, call him. He's on duty 24 hours a day. He doesn't take a day off. Like you guys, you're on 24 hours. Maybe not the people in the back, but you are, because that's your neighborhood, that's your order, that's your ward. So that's what you need to do. And if you don't use them, tough out of luck if they don't help you. Thank you, and God bless y'all.
Thank you. And before we adjourn, I'd like to recognize Alan Riney. You'll be seeing him next week. He's the nominee for fire chief. So is there a motion for adjournment?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Do we know if that big thing